Hey everybody, which would be exactly nobody. Welcome to the loneliest streamer in the world. Just so that we're 100% clear with Twitch, all the music that you will be hearing I wrote with a friend of mine. So this is all the license for all of this music is mine, and then the video mixing on the right is also my work, and that is it falls under fair use, obviously, because I'm clearly doing a lot of reinterpretation of it. So now that we got all that out of the way, hey, welcome everybody. My name is Todd Mariana. I go by opcode 66. I do a lot of really neat stuff, and I'm going to try to start streaming a lot of it. I started last month. I did a couple streams, and then some things kind of intervened and have kept me from coming back on, but I've got some time right now, so I'm going to bang this out. On one of my earlier streams, I actually worked on this guy right here. So this is a board that I designed using software to do that sort of thing, and I then used a site online to convert that board layout into the operations that a CNC machine can understand, which are what are called CAM MOPs. So CAM is computer aided machining or manufacturing, and MOPs are short for machine operations or machining operations. So when you go to do anything with a CNC machine, you typically have a series of MOPs that are going to be executed on that machine, on that particular piece of work. There might be flipping of the work in between some of those operations. Typically all of the features aren't usually on one side of something. So anyway, with this is just a simple circuit board, one-sided. You can also do two-sided ones if you want to, but one-sided board that I created on my CNC machine. So I have a desktop, what's called a 6040Z desktop engraver, which can actually not just engrave, it can route and cut brass and aluminum, no problem. Steel's not really its thing. You can sort of do some very thin sheet steel, but yeah, it's really not made for that. Oh, awesome. And my 18-year-old cat, who is not doing so great physically, is I think about to take a dump. Maybe it's just peepers. Well, either way, you might be hearing something gross. Anyway, my poor kitty has diarrhea every day because, again, he is 18 years old. So these are great. A pair of these guys. They also do have a light on them too, which sometimes will function. Oh, there we go. Sort of. There you go. Light's sort of a gimmick, but definitely these are very handy for doing this kind of work. So what I'm going to do really quickly with this board is just look at all of the traces and make sure that there really isn't any sort of there's no stuff hanging out, right? In between these traces, sometimes there can be a little tiny sliver, I don't really know what to call it, burr, piece of this copper, which might be settled in between two traces and shorting them. And that would be problematic because, these traces need to be separated for a reason, right? So having any sort of shorts would be really sort of an issue. So I'm going to show you real quick one of the definite areas which are problematic always for me when I use this particular footprint for transistors. Let's get this in focus here. Can't really get it as clear as I want, but like right here is where a transistor goes. Also, like right here, where these three. You guys really can't see that, can you? That's a bit better. Now it's focused, at least. Not as close as I'd like to have it. Anyway, right here, where these three pattern appears is where the transistors go. And quite frequently, I will get a tiny little bit of area that wasn't cleared out because they're just too close. And so the tools that I was using, either the etching end mill or the 1.5 millimeter flat-ended end mill that is used to do the hatching to clear out all the dead area, just couldn't get in there close enough, given the actual parameters of that configuration of that footprint. So, if this was being sent out to be made by, let's say, PCB I or something like that, then this would not be a problem. Also, too, I do have footprints that I've modified that resolve this issue. However, it takes up more space, obviously. So it's like a trade-off, I just also, too, you have to actually remember to use those. And with this particular board design, I just threw it together really quick, so I kind of forgot and used the footprint for transistors that have pads that are pretty close together. Long explanation for something. So right now, that's what I'm going to focus on, because really this board came out pretty clean. I'm not really seeing a lot of flare, excess little tiny pieces of copper that would cause shorts in any of these traces that are close together. So really what I'm focusing on for cleanup is these little tiny areas. So the first stream I did, like I said, I showed how I make a change to a schematic. I modified this and added some extra lines. This is a level shifter, which means that it allows you to interface logic components that run on different voltages. So for instance, something you run into quite often is trying to interface a 5-volt device, 5-volt logic device, like for instance an Arduino Uno, with something that is 3.3 or now even 1.1 volt, right? So there's even a lower voltage standard now than 3.3. So in order to share, like, let's say, data lines between devices like that, you typically have to go through a level shifter. There are definitely ones that you can buy, ones that are smaller boards than this, right? A lot of those are like 4 lines tops. I needed 7, and I needed some of them to be wide, if you will. So there are some there are a couple of lines that are shared between 2 devices that are level shifted, and there's a a resistor in between to keep them from interfering with each other, but they both get the same signal. So it's a little, it's sort of, it's more custom than like what you can buy as far as a level shifter from Adafruit or whatever. This is for a contract that I'm working on, but I mean, this part of it's not secretive at all, so I can show this. I'm not going to show you guys the actual heart of that work, because that is governed by an NDA that I can't divulge information about. But I can show you this because it's based on a schematic that I researched on Google Images. So, it's no secret. All right. There's a little bit of dead area that I didn't quite get in the machining process. I can explain why, but I'm not going to go into it. Suffice it to say that this is just going to come off. Cool. That really wouldn't have, probably affected anything at all, because it was just a strip next to a trace. So even if they had shorted, nothing would have happened. However, it's nice to have it cleaned up, and it just looks nice that way. Some people might be wondering, hey, why? Oh wow, I forgot to pull out, so everybody's probably like, what the hell? You're not showing me what you're doing. Whoops. So basically all I did was I went in and very carefully here made sure that any of the little tiny pieces of copper that were potentially touching in between these pads was removed very carefully, because you don't want to mess up the actual tracks. So there was a little piece hanging out there still, and another one right here still that I want to. Yeah, this was a live PA that me and my friend, very good friend of mine, lifelong friend of mine, awesome dude, awesome DJ, awesome musician, awesome friend, a lot of fun to hang out with. Man by the name of Brian Gardner. He and his wife are some spectacular people on earth, I gotta tell you. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do right now, now that I visually have looked at it and cleaned it up, I'm going to take my multimeter and make sure I don't run over my dog's tail here. Look out, buddy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, you can come back. So, take our good old multimeter here, and I've put it on, for me, it's a setting that looks like a waveform, like it's, like what you would see indicating a speaker or something, right? So, it means it's on the toning function, which means that when these guys touch, that guy makes a beeping noise. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is just make sure real quick that any of the tracks that are close to each other aren't gonna tone. So for instance, I'm gonna put this on the same track. You can hear it tones, right? But I wanna make sure that these two are not touching and these two are not touching. So real quick, I'm just gonna go over things that are close to each other and make sure that I didn't miss anything. Because every once in a while you will, with these homemade boards, find something you didn't really see that is shorting, and that would be a problem if you built the board out, because then you'd be trying to figure out what the hell is the problem in your circuit. And it's a lot harder to determine that sort of stuff or fix it if you've already built out the board. You know, it's tough to, let's say, test capacitors in place, right? So, especially when you're doing like R&D work, you're not following a template, you know, so when you're making something new, it's really hard to troubleshoot it because, you know, there's a lot of unknowns. You know, or at least starting from a troubleshooting guide where it's like, you know, well, if this is the case and that's the case, it's like you just start with a big, huge question mark, you know. Okay, so things seem to be pretty good. I'm not, you know, I'm forcing that, so that would be example of finding one, but I'm not finding anything, so cool, that's great. Awesome. Keep this guy out. I'll need him later. All right. So this board, it's pretty simple because, in a sense, it's simple because almost all of the components on it are the same value except for a couple. So that's what I'm looking for right now, are the couple that vary, and those are right there. So we'll put those in first. So these are 1K resistors. And before I do anything, I gotta change out my tip because right now it's pretty small. Probably not the best for the size components I'll be working with. That's good. So I'm going from this guy, which is, if you can see, pretty pointy, very small tip, to this guy, which is more of a squared tip. And we'll see, maybe I'll regret it. One of these is important. Some of this is important. So this thing, you will see me stick the soldering iron into, and that will clean the tip. And then this stuff is what's called rosin. So this stuff basically promotes flow of solder from the soldering iron tip onto the thing you want to actually solder. So that's something you end up running into. It's problematic. You go to try to solder something and the solder just won't fucking come off the tip of your soldering iron, and that can be due to a number of different things. One of them is having your soldering iron too hot. So if you're running that thing way too hot, that can be a problem. It can retard the flow. So my soldering iron wasn't plugged in. I just had to plug it in real quick. So once it gets up to heat, it'll start flashing. Another thing, and I am bad. I'm a bad bunny. Shoot. This should actually be distilled water, but it's not. It's just tap water. At one point in time, it was filled with distilled water, but not anymore. It should be distilled, but it's just tap, but whatever. So almost all soldering irons come with something like this. And a little sponge. You know, you dip in. And basically that will clean crap off the tip. So as you're soldering, there's just stuff that, you know, melts. Like there's rosin that's embedded usually in the solder itself, and there's dirt on components and things, and so blah, blah, blah. As you're doing work, the tip of your soldering iron will get dirty, and if you don't religiously clean it, it will become unusable. And that's, you know, sort of a problem. Okay. Trying not to run into the foot of the tripod here. All right. So what I'm going to do is insert components of the correct value into the correct holes, bend their legs so that they sort of stay in place. And following this guy, one is skipped in between. That's a different value resistor that goes there. So I said I'm just going to bang these out real quick. A little piece of painter's tape is your friend when you do this sort of work. Another thing that people will typically use, and I'm not going to get the whole thing out. Something like this. So they have magnets on the bottom to keep it from sliding around. But, you know, if you're sort of good enough, or if you use another couple of pieces of painter's tape, you don't actually have to use that metal base. And what you can do is slide the board in and out of these two holders, right? As long as they sort of stay in place. So that's one thing that you can do. I also have a fancy thing that I will show you guys real quick. Fancy schmancy. So if you really want to spend money, you can get yourself one of these guys. This is what's called a pan of ice. Right, so this can hold a board or whatever, and it can hold it in all sorts of different ways and angles and stuff. So if you loosen this guy up here, you can see that it moves this way, it moves this way, and it also moves like that. So between all the different ways that this guy can move, you can pretty much get your work positioned any way you like. Makes it convenient for you, but yeah, you know, I probably didn't hear any of what I was just saying. So yeah, that thing can hold the work any way you like. They're handy, but they're also spendy, and I didn't have one for a really long time, so I'm used to not having one, and I'm used to working without one. Trying to get a good shot for everybody here. Okay. Trying to get everything in view. What's also sort of handy usually is to just pull a string of solder like this, and then disconnect it from your spool, and now you just have a free piece of solder. You can sort of loop it around your fingers and make yourself sort of a little loop to hold on to. Oops. Yeah, so these, making a board this way, it's not exactly the same as a nice manufactured board, so, yeah. Soldering is sort of challenging. I think I need to adjust my heat, actually. Turn it down too much. Oh, well, there you go. No. I need to replace the tip in this guy, so it keeps going. It keeps disconnecting. So right now it's heating up again. Okay. There we go. Yeah, actually, I think I wanted my smaller tip. So we're going to change out. My bad. They're just padding the content, I guess, right? Yeah, don't ever touch that stuff with your actual dainty fingers. That would be bad. My soldering iron not gonna fucking work again. Awesome. Well, that's a great time for it to crap out. There we go. It's like a loose connection on the actual inside of the where the heating element is. So it's a pain in the butt. Okay. One of those is not as nice as I would have liked, but whatever. I don't care. You can save the legs of components like what I'm clipping off right now. They make really nice jump wires for short jumps. Not so much for longish ones. Okay, the rest of the resistors on here, and that's the order I typically go, is the lower components with the lowest clearance, and then keep moving up the chain. So in this particular board, that would be resistors, transistors, and screw terminals. So these are 4.7K. We just need a buttload of them. Essentially, that's what the actual level shifters need. The low voltage FETs that I am using bias correctly with 4.7. They can handle a higher wattage than most. Other ones that would be similar to what I'm using, you'd want to use a 10K with, but these are fine with 4.7 and will actually work better. So I also, in this design, again, to keep things simple, followed a pattern pretty much for all of the arrangement of the components here. So like I said, these are 7 level shifters, so it's basically the same bit of a circuit copied 7 times. And what I'm trying to say is I follow the pattern. So all of the transistors have these 2 resistors coming off of their emitter and collectors, and then the base is pointing up. So it will be easy for me to know where to put these guys without really referring to my board layout printout here, because that was mostly for everybody to see, not really for me. Yeah, I can sort of tell what's what because it's the same repeated pattern. I really should have saved the first stream I did not tell it to save video on demand. The second one I did, it did save video on demand, but I didn't download it. So should have, because I wanted to post it to YouTube, so I effed up there. But this time around, not only is it going to be captured in video on demand, I will download it and I will post it to YouTube. Not like anybody's really gonna watch, but that's cool. These are gonna get more interesting. I'm kind of doing the boring stuff right now because I'm getting used to this process. I have been video documenting my work for years, but I have not streamed for years, so bear with me. But once I get used to it, I will be doing far more complex and far more interesting work streamed live. So for instance, some of my R&D work for my record cutting lathe or record cutting gear, I intend to stream live. Nothing that's gonna fucking, excuse me, nothing that will effing sink the ship. So I'm not gonna show you totally secretive stuff, but I don't really mind sharing some of that experience. Same time, I don't really have a lot left to do. There's some work that I need to do on a piece for the platter coupling to add some adjustability. So that I might show you guys. We'll see. And then doing some of the development work for the main computer's operating system to finish some of the automation that I need to finish up. Not much, there's really not much, but some of that too, probably. And then I'm going to be doing programming tutorials in general, so how to do stuff, neat stuff in .NET. So after the transistors and after I do the screw terminals, I do have to do a couple jumper wires too. It looks like actually more than a couple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 6 or 7 looks like jump wires. Okay. So all the rest of the holes are represented by that. They're either jumps or they're transistors at this point. Okay. All right. Where'd my little bit of solder run off to? Okay. I guess I lost. Oh, there it is. Oops. Oops. Come here, you. Probably need a new sponge too, because it's looking pretty gnarly. So we're breaking all the rules. That's okay. We'll live. It's a trip down memory lane with this music, I'll tell you what. So at this point, all I really need is for Mr. Beast to fucking come on my stream here and donate $10,000 to me. That would be pretty handy. Jimmy, if you're listening, please do so. I would do some cool things with it, and I could make a lot of neat stuff for you guys or your videos. But yeah, that's not gonna happen. All right. I think I got all of them. Now, when you're clipping these, you don't really want to put pressure on the solder blob, so you don't want to get too close to it, because that can disrupt the joint. I actually played these keys myself. And played them, not played and edited, but actually that's a recorded take. Touch me, hold me. Do, do, do. Oops. Okay. Don't remember. So transistors have an orientation, and sometimes it's not the one that I used as a footprint. So let me just double check.
Every time I get this rush, nerves that they got.
I think that's right. Let me check it on the computer real quick. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's correct. Okay. So that would be truly unfortunate to pack them the wrong way. So I did use a correct footprint. So what that means is the flat side of these, right? Because there is a flat side to them. Oops. Yeah, I gotta stop doing that. Is opposite the side with the single middle base leg.
I like to try it tonight.
Which actually on these, since they're FETs, is called a gate. So instead of emitter, collector, base, it's source, drain, gate.
I like to try it tonight.
Oops, and I just did that backwards.
I like to shift gears.
I don't think I wrote this track. I think either I helped do one of the mixes or like edits or did mastering on it. I can't remember. This is Michael Ike, a friend of Brian's. Brian was doing some work with him, and so I ended up getting involved somehow as well. But I can't recall if I actually wrote this or not with him, or if I just sort of did a little work on it with him. I don't recall. I think it was just a little work with him. He wrote it using material from Michael Ike. All right, so that guys, these are now packed up. So same deal. I'm gonna, throw a little tape on top of them, make sure they don't go anywhere. All right. I'm gonna bend their legs over.
I like to drive to the night. Then I'd be able to breathe.
And then solder. I like to drive. I like to shift gears. I like to drive to the night. I like to shift gears. Well, who doesn't, dude? Sounds like he's saying Islam. Speaking of which, Assalamu alaikum. Sat Sri Akal. Namaskar. Hello, everybody.
I like to shift gears.
Now, if you want to be super obsessive, you would put a heat sink, a clip-on heat sink onto the leads of this in between the board and the actual tip of the transistor. The transistors can be heat sensitive, and so you can, with ones that are very heat sensitive, ruin them just by soldering them. So you would use one of these guys. You would clip it on to the legs of the transistor and solder them that way, and that way this guy eats up the heat before it gets to the tip of the transistor. Don't need to do that with these. Just don't. Okay. So depending on the type of solder, you don't want it to look cloudy per se. It should look shiny, but some solder won't look completely shiny. It just has to do with its mix. And in fact, some very high-end solders, we'll do that. We'll have like, it's not the look of a cold joint, cold solder, but it will be similar-ish. It won't be like 100% shiny, and that's okay though. Yeah, I really liked this track very much that we wrote. It was very good. Enjoyed performing it. Brenda did a great job with the vocals. I can hear my dog getting whiny, so I think I have to take him out soon. I take him out. Not like that. Not for a walk. So I may or may not actually complete this guy in this particular stream. We'll see. I think that I have exactly 0 people watching. Whatever, doesn't matter. I'm just making sure that I didn't create any shorts with very tiny solder blobs. So I'm looking over everything, especially the transistor pads, because they're very close together. Things look okay. So far so good. Looks nice. I'm going to do the connectors next, and then after that, the jump wires. So obviously these guys have an orientation, and that would be the big hole on the side goes out, points out from the board, right? So this is pointing into the board. So we're gonna mount it in these holes like this. Ooh, and these holes are just gonna be a tad too small. So sometimes you can force it through, but it looks like that's gonna be a bad idea. So I'm gonna have to widen all those, just a pain in the ass. Let me just see if I can fucking get away with this here. What do you do? No. Just gonna get a feel for what I need to do, how deep I need to go to widen these holes. And then I'll do the other ones. Yeah, you shouldn't really breathe this stuff in, by the way. It's not good for you. At this point, I have breathed in enough doing machining work on it that it just doesn't... I'm a lost cause. Too late for me. But if you guys want to do this, do not breathe in the fibers from this crap. It is dangerous. I'm just using the tip of the X-Acto knife, and I'm inserting it into the holes and turning it one rotation. think that'll do it. Oops. Bending component accidentally and bent some legs of a transistor. Noob. Okay. God, this is more Michael-like stuff. Ugh. You can't tell I was not really a fan of doing this work. Cool, it's good enough. Alright, let me prep the holes here for the other connector. It's a what? It's a 6. So when I make these boards, process I use only gives me one drill file, and I haven't made software yet to be able to split that drill file up into several and say these should be this size drill and these should be this size drill, so they all get drilled the same size. So you run into this sort of thing sometimes with, like, especially connectors, pin headers, or if I'm trying to use particularly thick wire or add a transformer to a board or something like that. Or the BJT, like the big MOSFETs, high voltage FETs, they got fatty legs. These I actually got on DigiKey surprisingly cheap. I don't know why they were so cheap in comparison, because like they really shouldn't be. It's like they were trying to get rid of them for some reason, or no one wants green. I don't know. Everybody wants the blue ones. So you can see I'm sort of pushing the board around. That's why it's handy to have it in something. Doesn't have to be something as expensive as a pan vise, but something. Keep it from moving around. Sometimes I'll just straight painter's tape them to my table on them. It just depends. Like if it's a really tiny board, it's really quick to do. Doesn't matter. There you go. So you can see they're coming out shiny. Last connector, and then I gotta do the jump wires, and then I'm done. Then I will test it. But I will probably probably end the stream at that point. Because I gotta go walk my dog. Really smoke a joint. Ugh. A little wider, please. Come on, just go on. Nope. Apparently with more pins, the fit is more delicate. Let's play with fewer pins. But on a 10 position connector, you don't. Okay. There you go. Now it's mounting flush with the board, which is ideal. Okay, in a second, I'm gonna get up and grab a bag of wire so I can do the jumps. Sweet. So on this guy, all of the wire jumps are indicated by excuse me, I should be holding this up. All the wire jumps are the red ones. The blue ones are the actual traces. So I'm gonna take this guy off, unclip my mic. So, it's my bag of random pieces of wire. So I try to save as much as possible, even down to little tiny pieces, you know, which is what this bag contains. Try to be as frugal as I can. Generally with the way I try to follow a pattern, which is like, you know, start upper left and work your way down. So we'll start with this one. Oops, this guy right here. I need to put these guys back on. And we've now reached the point where I have to mess with the board so much that putting it back into those metal pieces is just more of a pain in the ass than it's worth. Strip one end, put it into the first hole, bend it over, set it down, right. Get it heated up, apply the solder to the hot lead / trace, and let it dry, and it comes out nice, 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 nice. And then just sort of align it on the board where it's not going to interrupt other stuff. See where it needs to fall, trim it there. Remove the cover, the case, the wire at that point. So strip the end, i.e. bend over the lead. Okay. Oops. Yeah, I didn't quite make that long enough. Didn't strip enough. So it's fighting me. Trying to bend it over. Another trick that you can do when you're doing wire leads like this is to just bend it over the board. And that will get it to sort of stay in place. Because otherwise, if the wire moves around, this thing will move around and it won't be positioned the way you wanted it, like over the trace. Actually, it's okay if those touch, so I'm gonna just make them touch because they are part of the same path. Okay. So you are going there. And you go to the bottom one? Yeah. Okay. Okay. A fun track to write. I like, deep house very much. I used to DJ deep house, but I like to write very, very weird music. It's not necessarily deep house. But this one was neat. It's spacey. It's sort of eerie. can smell puppy farts. It's the best part about having a dog is puppy farts. It's the best part about a dog roommate, let me tell you. They blast them out. They're awesome. Every dog should come with a disclaimer that says, I make a mess, and sometimes I make smells. And you will love it. Love my stink. Tell how very into doing this right now that I am. I think I've sighed about 20 times. Last one, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first track Brian and I ever wrote together. It was a remix of somebody else's track. It wasn't really the best project, but it was a good start to a very good collaboration. Alright, cool. Well, she's done. So I will test this, but I actually have to program an Arduino in order to do it and hook it up to some LCDs and stuff that I'm really not going to show you guys. So that is it for this particular live stream. Sorry for boring the hell out of y'all. I'm sure no one has watched or cares, but anyway, stay tuned because I will be doing much more interesting things in the future, and I am just sort of trying to get used to doing this streaming stuff. So cool. Definitely check me out on YouTube. Please subscribe to my channel there, and everybody be well. Take care of yourself. We'll see you.